Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Dirt Diaries Explorers. I'm so happy to be back and talking about all the fun things today. And if you are new here, hi, how are you? I hope you enjoy ancient history, mythology, mystery cults, and more because my name is Dr. Tenendra Kallenbarger and I bring the ancient world to you because no, this is not Ancient Aliens. This is the real thing. And these, of course, are the Dirt Diaries. And of course, a special shout out and hello to everybody over on Patreon, whether you are lounging in the villa, going through the library and perusing all of the stacks, or snooping in the restricted section. Well, last episode, we really just dove back into season 2, didn't we? With Queen Puabi, human sacrifice, and more. And hey, with the richest tomb discovered from the royal cemetery at Ur, because yes, it belonged to a woman. And of course, you know, it's right around Valentine's Day, so I thought, hey, we should read some ancient love poetry, cry a little bit together, and then we can rank all the ancient love poems at the end. And yeah, spoiler alert, I did cry. Yeah, tearjerkers, spoiler alert. And you know, at first, I was actually going to include like tomb inscriptions that also really pull at the heartstrings. But there's so many love poems in the ancient world that I wanted to talk about. And I only got to like not even a small percentage of them in this episode. But maybe I'll do more like tomb inscriptions later. I know from season 1, we already talked about, you know, tomb curses. But I also love the very personal tomb inscriptions that really just pull on your heartstrings. So perfect for Valentine's Day because we are ranking ancient love poems. And these poems that I'm going to be talking about today have been immortalized through time and history. And as I was, you know, picking which love poems to actually talk about for today's episode, I really had the standard of when he says, I love you, but somebody from the ancient world said this. So that was how they got on my list today. So I cannot wait to dive into all of them with you all and break them all down. Which I loved. I loved them so much. And yeah, I'm really hoping I don't cry off my lashes for you guys. So we're going to start with, you know, love notes and love poems from earliest to later. The later is going to be kind of like a hodgepodge of Greco-Roman love poems, but we got to start with the earliest because I think that's where we begin best, is at the earliest. So let's go ahead and dive into the world's oldest love poem. So when we actually think of love poems, we always usually have something in mind, right? If I were to say, you know, imagine a love poem that your partner or you are even writing, what would make it up? We know exactly what should be in a love poem, even if we've never written one. And, you know, when we look at what is coming from Mesopotamia, it's slightly different than what we expect. So today, where we are often seeing love notes come in the form of poems, even songs that hit the charts, or even just a really cute little post-it note that you find in your lunch. You know, maybe your partner packs your lunch for you every single day. That's what we think of when we think of love notes or even love poems. Also, you know, for me, Hosier comes to mind. Truly, there's a whole spectrum of love notes and different, you know, aspects about what makes a love note a love note. But at the end of the day, we all know a love note when we see it. But with that being said, the world's oldest love note doesn't exactly jump out and scream, hello, I'm a love note. It's very nuanced. It's very, very beautiful, but it's nothing like how we imagine it. So, in order to meet the world's oldest love poem, we have to go back a hop, skip, and a jump to 1845. Because 1845 is when archaeologist Austin Henry Layard actually steps onto the scene. And he's excavating the site of Kalhu, which that is the Assyrian name of the site that we now know today as Nimrud. And if you are wondering where the site is located today, it is actually located just south of modern Mosul. Okay, so 19th century. Our buddy Layard, well, unfortunately for him, he is under quite a bit of pressure. And why? Well, he's under quite a bit of pressure as an archaeologist to go out there, get out there and go find some sites that, have ties to the Bible. Meaning that when he is excavating Nimrud, he automatically begins really jumping to conclusions faster than he is digging. And he is digging at the site of Nimrud, but as he's digging and as artifacts are becoming unearthed, he is just like, oh, I've got it. We're at the site of Nineveh. And if you are like, what's Nineveh? Well, get out, your books and texts, because Nineveh might ring a bell with Jonah and the whale. It's like, okay, we're in Nineveh. Love that. It's fitting in exactly with what I'm supposed to be doing right now, digging up the Bible. And in 1849, he is actually beginning to publish on his excavations and his findings. And instantly, his book actually becomes like a #1 bestseller of the time. And because of all this hype and fanfare and more, well, this really piqued kind of everybody's interest in Mesopotamia, but not just for ancient history, that we all might be interested in. Nay, back in the 19th century, this was piquing the interest of people, excavators, archaeologists, and scholars for looking to excavate new places in Mesopotamia that might have ties to the Bible. And why? Because they saw it as a way to corroborate the stories found there. And this, while it's great that it really piqued the interest of so many individuals during the 19th century, there is an unfortunate consequence of thinking this way. Why? Because when you are digging for artifacts and more that you are looking to prove something, basically, no matter what it is, whether it's to prove the Bible, to prove, the tomb of Cleopatra is located nearby, anything like that, if you are going out there to prove something, even, I'm going to prove that this is where the Trojan War actually occurred. Well, anything that you bring up out of the ground, you are going to be cherry picking through the evidence to really find what you're looking for, to find and locate evidence that really matches what your hypothesis is. So, for example, Layard was digging, and anything he was bringing up was like, oh, this fits in with this biblical story, meaning we should actually be in the town and city of Nimrud, which, okay, but at the same time, we cannot, as scholars and archaeologists, be digging with a pastiche or a trowel in one hand and the Bible or the Iliad in the other. It's not good, because everything that you bring out is already going to have a bias. And this is actually an issue that we really see with the beginnings of biblical archaeology. And because this piqued so many people's interest, excavations following this publication actually were done in order to confirm stories of the Bible. But by doing so, today we now know that it really kind of did the opposite. So by the time that Layard is digging, so 1850, let's call it, just nice round numbers, the Bible was considered to be the oldest book ever known. And not only was it considered to be the oldest book at its time, but it also was believed to hold the world's oldest love song or love poem. And in the Bible, it is known either as the Song of Songs or the Song of Solomon. But when Layard is digging at the site of Nineveh during 1946 into 1947, during that excavation season, he actually stumbles across the library of the Neo-Assyrian king Ashurbanipal. I love Assyrian king names. Oh, they are some of my favorite. If I could, this is totally a tangent, I'm so sorry, but if I ever got, more animals, I would absolutely name them some cool names like Ashurbanipal, Ashurnashirpal, Nebuchadnezzar. Oh, I love all those names. Anywho, so Ashurbanipal is a Neo-Assyrian king, so his reign dates to roughly the 7th century BCE, if you're getting your chronology tables out. So this entire library came packed, chock full of cuneiform tablets that documented Mesopotamian tales that rang a bell for many individuals, such as tales of a flood that can be actually traced back all the way to the Epic of Gilgamesh. In fact, once these cuneiform tablets from the library of Ashurbanipal were deciphered, it actually showed that many of the tales that these individuals of the time knew from the Bible actually may have been inspired by or from pre-existing Mesopotamian stories and mythology. Now, you might be wondering, Ashurbanipal is 7th century Neo-Assyria. What, we're talking about Song of Songs, Song of Solomon. What does that date to? Well, the Song of Songs, actually dates to anywhere between the 6th century BCE to the 3rd century BCE. So we got a little bit of wiggle room coming into play. But it was actually replaced, the Song of Songs, lost the title of the world's oldest love poem to one that is actually called the Love Song to Shu Sin. And this love song or love poem actually dates to 2000 BCE. But we actually wouldn't know about the love song for Shu Sin until much later. Because once the tablet was found, it was then brought to a museum in Istanbul, which of course is in modern day Turkey. And that cuneiform tablet was basically kind of just put into a drawer and never deciphered. I'm pretty sure people actually forgot about it. So in the drawer where it was unknown and untranslated, it sat, which this has been a theme for quite some time, especially during season 1 of the Dirt Diaries. We actually saw this with the world's oldest rendition of a ghost in the British Museum. We also saw this occurring in the British Museum again with the world's oldest rule book for the game of 20 squares. That also was just sitting on a tablet, long forgotten. But this tablet was actually translated in 1951 by a man named Samuel Noah Kramer. Now, he actually writes, quote, "The little tablet, number 2461, was lying in one of the drawers, surrounded by a number of other pieces. When I first laid eyes on it, its most attractive feature was its state of preservation. I soon realized that I was reading a poem divided into a number of stanzas which celebrated beauty and love, a joyous bride, and a king named Shu Sin, who ruled over the land of Sumer close to 4,000 years ago. As I read it again and yet again, there was no mistakes in its content. What I held in my hand was one of the oldest love songs written down by the hand of man." Like, to be able to decipher this and knowing that you are the first person who is really bringing it back to life in almost 4,000 years, like, that is, it just, I couldn't even imagine what that would feel like to have that. So since Kramer is really talking about a celebration of beauty and love, here is an excerpt from the love song of Shu Sin. "Your spirit, I know where to cheer your spirit. Bridegroom, sleep in our house until dawn. Your heart, I know where to gladden your heart. Lion, sleep in our house until dawn. You, because you love me, give me prey of your caresses. My Lord God, my Lord protector, my Shu Sin, who gladdens Enlil's heart. Give me prey of your caresses." Which sounds nice automatically, but you might be wondering, much like I did, what is really going on in this excerpt? And it is really long, so I didn't want to include all of it here, but let's go ahead and break this down a little bit. So while it is part of a love song or a love poem, it also tells us a little bit about a rite that used to happen in ancient Mesopotamia. This was actually part of a sacred rite that was performed each and every year, usually around the new year. And this rite was actually made up of a sacred marriage between the king and the goddess Inanna. Now, Inanna is a Mesopotamian goddess with associations to love, sex, fertility, and even war. So much like love and war duality in ancient mythology. So, how would the king marry a goddess? Well, because this was all symbolic in every way, shape, and form, well, he wouldn't really be marrying the goddess per se. No, no, the goddess is pretty busy, doing goddess things. So instead of marrying her, he would in fact marry symbolically one of her priestesses. And then the king and the priestess, after they were symbolically married, well, they would go and, have sex, share relations. And by doing so, not only, consummating the marriage, but this rite in general was really meant to ensure fertility and prosperity to the whole state for the new year. Now, because this was normally occurring around the New Year's to ensure the abundance and prosperity and fertility of the land for the area for the entire New Year, this also would have been joined in with merriment, dancing, music, singing, and of course, banqueting. So, because we know that a priestess of Inanna would have been chosen to complete this rite, it's actually believed that it would be the bride in this case who is the one who is, reciting this part of the love poem to the king himself. So while this composition was likely spoken or even sung by the priestess of Inanna, the whole thing is deeply personal and shows so much affection and emotion from a female perspective that also really encapsulates not only romantic love, but erotic love as well. So I don't know about you guys, but for the love song of Shu Sin, I really, really enjoy it. I really hope that you all go out and read the full thing because it is really just truly beautiful. I do love how the bride is kind of like talking to him and she's really like singing his praise, which likely is part of the rite itself. But I don't know, there's just something so beautiful about this that, almost 4,000 years ago, somebody was singing this song in order to ensure, prosperity and abundance. But I totally think that if I were just to look at this by itself and not have any cultural understanding of this fertility rite that was occurring, I don't know if I would inherently consider this to be a love poem. Like, it's beautiful and everything, and it has so much purpose, not only as a love poem, but as part of a rite and everything. But if I were just to read this in passing in like a compilation of love poems of the ancient world, I don't know if I would explicitly think that it was a love poem or even a love song. So Mesopotamia had love poems, but did any other, ancient culture have it? Well, of course they did. Love has always been love for as long as forever. So, because of that, don't know why I'm using my other mirror. So, of course, because love has always been love and has been captured in so many different ways and forms, we gotta go from the east, where Mesopotamia resides, to the southwest, a hop, skip, and a jump over to Egypt. And of course, with ancient Egypt, we have quite a few love poems, which I absolutely love. But most of them, actually, fun fact, are going to be really comprised during the New Kingdom. Now, when I say comprised, I just mean written down. Because during the New Kingdom period, really during the Ramesside period, we see a new type of literature begin to take shape and form. And this new form is through poetry, but that is about love. And not only love, but we do get some explicit scenes as well. Now, the subjects of these poems really go anywhere from just having like descriptions of who they love, who their beloved is, the intoxication that the writers and authors find themselves in, and challenges and fears the authors have about expressing their emotions to the object of their affection, to their beloved, or even just, really kind of telling them about their love for them or even confessing to them. So really written from like the point of view of somebody who has a crush. We also even get some poetry that talks about basically like heartbreak or the feelings that you have where you are so infatuated with somebody or you have such a huge crush on somebody that you almost feel as though like there's an illness. So we see that as well too, which is very, very interesting. And of course, with that, with all of the good that love, brings, all of those great emotions and giddiness and butterflies in the stomach, there, of course, are going to be poems about heartbreak as well. And these concepts of love, infatuation, a crush, and even heartbreak, well, they're represented and captured through references of the natural world in ancient Egypt. So we often will see an author comparing their beloved to, beautiful flowers like a lotus. We'll see the comparisons to being sweet like honey or certain fruits. Or on the other side of that, not about beauty, but on the other side of that spectrum, how the ancient authors are actually capturing that fear or the anxiety about, having a crush or confessing to your crush. They actually compare it to trying to safely cross the Nile, which truly, love is a battlefield. And what a way to capture that, trying to safely cross the Nile. But we don't just see comparisons or parallels to the natural world. No. We also see some gods of the Egyptian pantheon being brought in and being invoked. Of course, many of these gods and goddesses do have direct associations to love, sex, lust, and more, one of which is the goddess Hathor. And of course, she is well known by her cow ears in iconography. And outside of love and, sex and fertility, she also has ties to protecting the pharaohs of ancient Egypt. And perhaps by invoking her along with, other goddesses, perhaps these ancient Egyptians thought that, these gods and goddesses would help them win the affections of their beloved. Which is really interesting, and this is kind of a side note right now, that when we look at like love curses in the Greco-Roman world, we see the same thing, that you are petitioning a god or a goddess who has domain over love, lust, sex, fertility, all of that kind of stuff. And you're doing it so that you can win the affections of your beloved. So very, very interesting to see that this is also occurring in ancient Egypt as well. Now, it's believed that these poems may have existed way before the New Kingdom, but that during the New Kingdom, they were actually just written down. So the belief is that these were perhaps maybe part of an oral tradition, or at least they were transmitted orally prior to the New Kingdom, prior to the Ramesside period, and that they were perhaps sung, so that they wouldn't be spoken, but you would actually sing them, which I kind of like. So the love poems of ancient Egypt are usually written on either papyrus, which, some of which does survive today in different museums, or if it's not on papyrus, the other popular one of really having inscriptions of love poems is ostraca. And ostraca is either, pieces of rock or potsherds that bear inscriptions on it. Ostraca. So first up from ancient Egypt, one of my absolute favorites, and I'm trying not to skew the final results because I am going to be ranking these, at least my top 3 at the end, but we're starting with the flower song. Many of you may have seen excerpts of it floating around on the internet, but man, the flower song. So the flower song is actually found on the Harris. It is the Papyrus Harris 500 in Group B. I often say it's the Harris Papyrus, but it should be Papyrus Harris Group B. I don't know why. And okay, so this papyrus is, of course, dating to the New Kingdom. And not only during the New Kingdom, but this one specifically dates to the Ramesside period, which, it does cover quite a bit of time. But the Ramesside period is really, it really begins in Dynasty 19. And of course, goes through Dynasty 20. So we're really looking at the time period anywhere from about the later part of the 1200s, 1290s, all the way to 1077 BCE. So we're looking at roughly 200 years and some change. So this papyrus that bears the flower song is actually housed in the British Museum today. So here's an excerpt as well, because it is long, but this is actually one of my favorite parts. So it goes, quote, To hear your voice is pomegranate wine to me. I draw life from hearing it. Could I see you with every glance? It would be better for me than to eat or to drink, which I'm sorry. Like that. Did Hosier write this? Oh my God. That is just exquisite. That deserves to be in a museum where everybody can see, ancient love poems because, like I said earlier, where I think about ancient love poetry and then I think about, oh, he says I love you, but, somebody almost 4,000 years ago wrote that. Like, oh my goodness. And basically with this, not only, he's saying that, the object of his desire, she is sweet like pomegranate wine, but he would actually rather just look upon her almost basically for every moment of every hour of every day. And he would rather look at her than eat or drink. He would rather just look at beauty from the description than survive, which that's like snaps all around. That is something. Like, I don't even know. That is everything. I want my husband to say that. All right. So after the flower song, I mean, it's kind of hard to follow that up, but alas, we must move on. And this actually comes from the Papyrus Chester Beatty. Now, this also dates to the Ramesside period, but it's actually believed that it dates to Dynasty 20, after the reign or during the reign, later part of the reign of Ramses V. So we're looking at 12th century BCE. So here we go. Here is the excerpt. I pass by his house, finding its door open. My beloved stands beside his mother, his siblings all around him. He looks at me as I pass, but I alone rejoice. Had his mother known my heart, she would have gone inside for a moment. Oh, golden one, put that in her heart so I may hurry to my beloved and kiss him before his companions. So I already love this because we're seeing kind of like the woman's point of view of who she is in love with. She's walking by his house. She sees him just standing there and everything. His family is around him. So she's kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm a little shy. What do I do? But, if his mom knew that I loved him, maybe she would leave. And by doing so, I could go over and, kiss him in front of his family and everything. So when she is making mention of golden one, it could be in reference to Ra, of course, the sun god. But I absolutely love that of like, put it in her heart that she knows that I love him. I don't know. I love that because I don't know, the whole thing about like, I'm walking by him and I see him. It's very like you're locking eyes with an individual. And I don't know, there's just something about this that is still very reminiscent of, what many of us may experience today. And another one from the Papyrus Chester Beatty 1. So same period, same papyrus. We have this excerpt. My beloved stirs my heart with his voice. He causes illness to seize me. My mother is right in commanding me, avoid seeing him, but my heart is smitten by his memory. My love for him has seized me. Look, he is a fool, but I am just like him. He does not know my desire to embrace him. He does not send word to my mother. Oh, my beloved, I am destined for you by the golden goddess of women. I love this. I love this so stinking much. So this one, perhaps written by a female point of view. And I love this again because we see here something that's very interesting. It's something that I mentioned earlier. Illness being caused because you have a crush. So take a moment. Think about, when you had a crush or the last time you were crushing on somebody. How did you feel? It may have felt, you didn't want to eat, you didn't want to drink, you were always just up thinking about them. Perhaps you're not sleeping properly, and all of your mind is just consumed by the other individual, much like we see here in this excerpt of love poems, where the author here is saying, oh my gosh, I have this illness of, loving him, and it seized me, and almost kind of like I can't function because all I can do is think about them. Like, I'm even thinking about like me. I remember when I first started dating my husband, you are constantly waiting for their text. You are constantly, waiting for their call. When am I going to see them again? And you kind of like, you don't exactly pay attention to like the rest of the world around them because you are just consumed by them. But here we go. We also have reference to the golden goddess, which may be in reference to the goddess Isis, who also has associations to love as well. But here in this poem, we get more of like a personal like insight into this individual, because they are saying, he doesn't know that I have feelings for him. He doesn't know that I want to, be embraced by him in the biblical sense, share relations. And it's kind of like this unrequited love that this, author is having of allowing us in just a little bit into like this window of, over 3,000 years ago that, they were still experiencing like the same feelings that we still have today. And, the fact that he doesn't know that she might have feelings for him. But it's also funny because, we're seeing a little bit of, something that is very similar to today of, oh, my mother says like I shouldn't see him. So it's almost kind of like, oh, they are destined to be together. At least this was what the author wants, but they're being pulled apart because her mother doesn't want her to see him. It's truly like a Hallmark love story in the making right here, ancient Egypt. All right, before we move on to Greek and Roman poems about love and, some of the authors and everything, I'm going to quickly line my eyes. All right, for the love poems that are coming from basically the Greco-Roman time period, I have a few written down from a few different authors, including Sappho and Plato. But I also have two that I'm going to end on from anonymous because, I don't know, there's something about inscriptions, poems, writings, anything that come from anonymous, come from an unknown source to archaeologists and scholars that I want to talk about at the end. So up first on the docket, we have Meleagros. And from his writings, we actually have over 130 of them. And while most of them are pretty erotic. Now, Meleagros' collection of writing, the so-called Garland of Meleagros, was actually one of the first serious attempts to compile a critical anthology of Greek poetry. So, from his writings, here is one of them. In the name of love, I swear that I would rather hear Heliodora's whisper in my ear than the shining harp of Apollo. Which, I'm sorry, if I'm Heliodora, to have somebody saying that they would rather hear your voice than the music produced by the golden lyre of Apollo. I mean, that is some ancient riz right there. That is quite a compliment. I don't even know, like to have somebody even say like, I would much prefer to hear the sound of your voice than the music of the gods. That's beautiful. Why does nobody talk like this anymore? Then we next up have this. Eros, still a babe, in his mother's lap, played at dice one morning and tossed away my soul. So with this one, let's break this down just a little bit. So Eros, still a babe. So young Eros. So get your mythology books out. Eros is the Greek version of the Roman Cupid. So, okay. Love god. He is actually the son of Aphrodite. But in some instances, and this is like a tangent, in some instances, Eros is also considered to be a primordial god as well, like coming out of the chasm with like Gaia, Erebos, who's darkness, and others. So there is some mythology where he is a primordial, and then most mythology that people know is that Eros, the love god who shoots his arrows at people, is of course the offspring of Aphrodite, the love goddess herself, which, as Cupid, he is also the son of Venus, the Roman counterpart to the Greek Aphrodite. And just here in this poem, we already have a young Eros. So perhaps he wasn't, shooting his arrows just yet. He's sitting in his mother's lap. So he's sitting in Aphrodite's lap, who loves to, play with mortals and their love. But it is Eros who plays dice rather than shoots an arrow. And as he's playing a game, this man, Milagros, is losing his soul. So basically, the gods of love have played with him, and now he has lost everything. And I mean, so many of us, like, you just feel so consumed by like love and a crush. And, is it the gods who are, playing with your heartstrings? Oh, I just love it. Like, that poem is like yearning. That is some yearning. So moving away from Milagros, we are going to another author, Bayanmar. And he writes, and I quote, "Get ready to literally have your heart ripped. I'm a nobody, no one special, a nothing. Yet even I am loved. Even I am the master of someone else's soul." Which also just like really puts things in perspective of like, you might just be like, oh, I'm nobody, I'm nothing, but you are still loved. And I just love that. This one is interesting because it's like, I am nobody, I am a no one, but I am still loved and I have somebody. And it's also kind of interesting too, because it's not just love or desire or anything like that here, because he's actually saying that he is the master of someone else's soul. So this poem actually could be taken a few different ways. And the more that I think about it, the more that I'm like, there's so much more to this. So, okay, we got to go back over this again. I'm a nobody, no one special. Okay, so anybody could kind of, put themselves in this character's shoes and they're in this predicament, right? It's kind of open to interpretation. Anybody can insert themselves here and feel like they're part of it. A nothing, okay? Yet even I am loved. Okay, so basically like it doesn't matter who you are. You can have love, you can find love, okay? I like that a lot. But then we get these last two lines. Even I am the master of someone else's soul. Like, I get that of like, if you love somebody, like they will do kind of anything for them. So you could say that you are the master of their soul, because you know that they would basically burn the world down for you. But here it's almost, I don't know, it's a little darker, like the darker side of love of even I am the master of someone else's soul. Are you going to use that for like good or bad? Because, if somebody knows that you like them, you could basically like use that to your own personal advantage. Ooh, this is a darker one. Oh, I pulled this one earlier because I was like, oh, it's cute. I love it. And now I'm like, okay. What do you guys think about this one? I didn't realize like the darkness behind it. Ooh, mama, I did not realize that. We got to go to Sappho. We're moving on. I'm trying to leave the darkness over there. We're moving to Sappho, okay? We love her. So of course, Sappho is one of the most famous and influential of all Greek poets. Anybody can mention Sappho and somebody is going to know about her. Sappho was a resident of the island of Lesbos, and she really flourished during the 6th century BCE. And I want to do a whole episode on Sappho, where we only have fragments of her work. So here's one of the fragments. Love shook my heart like wind pounding mountain oaks. Already, like that fragment is 2 sentences, like 2 lines, I should say. And I'm already like, yep, I get that. Yep, been there. Yep. Understood. Like so perfectly captured here. Love will grip you by surprise and you don't even know it. And it will truly come up on you like wind hounding oaks. And it'll basically like consume you to an extent. So then we have the next fragment. And it's, you came and I was longing for you. You cooled a heart that was burning with desire. You came and I was longing for you. Again, we don't know who she is referencing. It's kind of left up to our interpretation, which I do love. And you cooled a heart that burned with desire. So already, again, re-encapsulating what it is like to be in love. Your heart is aflame, and this person coming back into your life, you see them again, you see them in a doorway even, and it just cools that burning desire, and you are able to almost like take like a calming breath. Oh, yeah. I need to do a whole deep dive on Sappho. The next one we have is by Plato, and he, of course, is the great Athenian philosopher. So, from this poem, we have, "You're my star, a stargazer too, and I wish that I were heaven with a billion eyes to look at you. I might cry off my lashes." He is a stargazer, and he looks upon this individual who is his star, almost his muse. He is just enraptured by this individual. And, while he looks up and saying, "You are my star and I but a stargazer, but I wish I could be heaven, because if I were heaven, then I could have all of the stars and I could have all of my eyes on you," which, like, truly, when he says "I love you," but Plato wrote this, I have no words for that other than just like, oh my God. That is the type of love and adoration that everybody deserves. Well done, Plato. Well done. And finally, the last two that I have. These last two are really interesting because we actually don't have an author. So it just has anonymous on them. So here is the first one. "A girl kissed me in the early evening with wet lips. Her kiss was nectar, her mouth divine. And now I am drunk with the kiss, for I have drunk deeply of love." When you almost get almost like high off of a kiss, off of kissing the one that you love the most, that is what is really encapsulated in this poem. This author is saying he or they, kissed a woman on the lips at the evening, and she was so sweet and beautiful that because of this kiss, he has just become drunk. He's become drunk off of it. And last but not least, we have another anonymous, and it reads, "I fell for her. I kissed her. I was lucky. I am loved. But who I am and who she is and how it happened, God only knows." So already here, we almost get launched into the middle of maybe even like a love story, or not forbidden love, but maybe love that may not have happened. Who knows how it happened? Only the gods, only the fates know how this happened. And from this poem, you really just get like this sense of surprise, shock, awe, but gratefulness at the same time of like, I don't know how I ended up with this person. God only knows. But I am so lucky. I am so honored. I fell for her. I kissed her. Like, how this happened, I have no idea. I think that also like encapsulates a different side of love as well, that like it just really came out of nowhere. I know a lot of people say like when you're not looking for love or you're out of a relationship and you're not looking, like that's when it finds you. It almost kind of seems like that was what happened here. Like love truly snuck up on these two individuals and, for the better, it seems. And I mean, that's kind of what happened with my husband and I. We met online. I wasn't looking. I was actually flying home from Cyprus. I was on a dig. So I flew home. And by home, I mean I was going to see my parents, because while I was living in Philadelphia in an apartment at the time, I was flying to see my parents and sister. So I landed stateside in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia airport. And that was when my husband swiped on me while I was on my stateside layover, because I had like a 2-hour layover before I flew from Philly to San Diego. And we matched later on because I was all discombobulated because of the time change and everything. So we had been talking and it just truly came out of nowhere. Like none of us were expecting it. And, we are now married. How long have we been married? We've been married 4 years and we've been together for almost 8. So I feel this poem so much. Like, that, I love it. But, now to rank these, I'm going to have to go top 3. And I'm just looking over the poems really quick one more time. I'm going to have to go, okay, top 3, top 3, top 3. I'm going to have to go top 3 in no particular order right now. I'm going to have to go Flower Song. Flower Song is up there. I don't know why. I absolutely love that. It's the pomegranate wine for me. What else? Plato. It's going to have to be Plato. Like, I'm sorry. And number 3. I'm going to have to go to the last one, and how it happened, God only knows. Okay. All right. Okay, top 3. Okay, not everybody can make varsity. Who's going to be on top? I'm going to have to go Plato. I don't know. That one made me tear up. So I'm going to have to go with that one, honestly, you guys. That is who I'm going to have to pick. Oh my gosh. Plato, well done. Well done. I was actually going to, as you know before, I was going to include like tomb inscriptions as well that really just pull on your heartstrings. But I'm happy I did just love poems today, and maybe we'll just do tomb inscriptions later because, man, those really just pull on your heartstrings. All right, well, we kind of went for like a little pink look, a little lavender pink purple look, but oh my gosh, this was fun. I love ranking things, but it's also so stressful because I can never make a decision. That's a fun fact about me. But thank you guys so much for being here. Let me know about what you guys want me to talk about next. I have so many more fun things planned, but drop below what your favorite love poem was and by who. Do you agree with what I was saying? Drop your thoughts about, the love song of Shu Sin. Drop your thoughts about, was there, some darker sides to love in any of these love poems? I'm really excited to hear from you guys, but that'll be it for me. If you want more archaeology, mythology, and mystery, you can go ahead and join all of your ancient history loving friends over on Patreon. And if you want to come travel with me, well, we're going to China this September, so you can come see the Terracotta Warriors, which they just had a new incredible find come out. They actually just discovered a new terracotta commander, which is super rare because there's only about 10 that have been discovered, as compared to like the thousands. I believe it's over 7,000 terracotta warriors. So very, very cool. We are actually going to be going to see the terracotta warriors and the mausoleum site of the first emperor of China. We also talked about the first emperor of China and the period of the Warring States over on season 1 of the Dirt Diaries with Emperor Qin Shi Huang. So you can go ahead and take a look at that. We only have a few early birds left over, so come travel with me. And yeah, I will see you guys very soon. And as always, keep your books open, stay curious, and I will see you guys next time on the Dirt Diaries.